We got some good news. We got good news for those that like Donald Trump. Key Pennsylvania county flips to majority GOP for registered voters. This is huge. This is Luzerne County. They say there are now more Republicans registered to vote in Luzerne than there are Democrats. It's fantastic news, and we have a lot of great signs for Donald Trump. I'm not sure if I have all this stuff pulled up. No, but we can show this from Gallup. Asked of independents, as of today, do you lean more to the Democratic Party or the Republican Party? And in the latest, check this out, it's a flip. Now, it's gone back and forth a little bit. In August, 46% said Republican, 49% said Democrat. Not so good, huh? However, as of September, 50% said Republican and 45% said Democrat. So there we go. I don't know what other pages there are. This goes way back. You go way back. Look at this. It's usually favoring Democrats. If you go, let's go back to 2012. Let's go to 2016. This time, 2016. What do we have here? It was 42 to 48. And let's take a look at the election. When Hillary Clinton won, it was 43 to Republican, 48 Democrat. Independents favored the Democratic Party. Let's go up to 2020 November and take a look at what we saw. November, it was 45 Republican to 48 Democrat. Now, November don't matter so much. Let's go to September to see how the trends continued. It was in September, 44 Republican, 47 Democrat in 2020. And in 2016, in September, so I'm comparing it to like now, it was 44 to 49. The fact that as of right now, in September, it is favoring Republicans is largely indicative of a Donald Trump victory. But don't count all your chickens before they hatch, my friends. You best get out there and do the work. Lord help us if you kick back in your recliner right now and say, we got it in the bag. The polls are on our side. Yeah, you better not. But my friends, while we're learning the crazy news that Luzerne County has flipped red with the GOP taking voter registration lead, we're hearing about how the Republicans are doing a tremendous job registering new voters. We got this. Republicans scrutinizing automatic voter registration in Pennsylvania. Republicans are stepping up scrutiny of their system for registering people to vote through its driver's licensing centers. You see, Democrats are just like, we're going to automatically register everybody, and they're hoping that that will skew Democrat. Now, there is still some good news here. Despite the fact that it seems like they're doing this to counteract Republican ground game, we've got a lot of reporting that new voters are leaning Republican as it is, and Democrats were trying to curtail voter registration. In fact, it may be that the reason Republicans are taking over is because people are getting automatically registered and they lean in Republican. So we'll see. But where do we go from here? Well, I got bad news for y'all. ABC News says this could be the closest presidential election since 1876. But a normal polling error could also result in one candidate winning easily. I think they're all lying. I don't think they want to admit that Donald Trump has a commanding lead. Now, I can tell you why, but let me throw it to our good friend, Rich Barris, the People's Pundit. He says, oh, my God, Harris is down in the Marist poll, which has overstated Democrat support in darn near every swing state over the last two presidential cycles. It may be every state, in fact. Marist has Arizona up Trump. Georgia, Trump is up. North Carolina is a tie. That means Donald Trump's taking the lead. Let's take a look at top battleground states. As of right now, in aggregate, Donald Trump is leading the battlegrounds by 0.1. But how much does that really matter? If he wins Georgia and Arizona, is that going to be enough? Well, Trump's got to win a little bit more than that. Here's the deal. This is the aggregate. And as I've mentioned every single day, we've gone over the election. The bias in favor of Democrats in 2016 and 2020 was between 3 and 5 nationally and 4 to 7 in swing states. And I say this every time. As of this date in 2020, Joe Biden was up 7. Right now, Harris is up 2. The reality, Biden ended up clearing around 3. He was up 7. He ended up about 3. And that was with the shadow campaign. How can Kamala Harris possibly win with this flood of pro-Trump support? If the bias in swing states actually, so nationally, she should be down on a conservative estimate down 1 point. Trump is up 1. If we say the bias was 3, we could say the bias is 5, and then Trump's up 3 points. But I don't know that Trump wins the national popular vote. In fact, I don't even know that Trump wins, because we don't know the policy and procedure game they're going to be playing behind the scenes, aka shadow campaign. But as of right now, shockingly, it appears that Trump is winning the argument. In the states where it really matters, the battlegrounds, Trump is up. When you look at, let me do this. I got 270 to win. Let's go. So we're going to look at the 2020 presidential election map. This is based on polling right now, and there are toss-ups. So it can go either way. Let's play this game. Let's pull up the battlegrounds. And then I do want to make sure we get to the, it's a civil war that's coming, 1876. That's what the ABC is trying to imply. Haha, I'm half kidding. Let's start with Arizona. Arizona goes Trump. Then we've got Nevada going Harris. I'm taking their estimates, right? I'm taking their straight numbers. We're going to base it right off whatever they're saying. She got Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. That's bad news. Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania. I'll go Harris. She won. I don't even need to look at Georgia and North Carolina. We can say let's go for Trump. It don't matter. Excuse me. Trump only gets to 262 electoral votes to Kamala Harris's 276. Let's play a game. Let's say the 4-7 bias is persistent, meaning Trump is up in all of the swing states. Dude, I don't even need to show you 270 to win. If Trump is winning every single swing state, it's over. Kamala Harris might as well just resign now. That's 312 Donald Trump to 226 Democrats. Again, we don't know for sure. Now, I think there's where's the make your own map stupid thing? They got a, how do you do that? President, come on, give me the, they've got the make your own map or whatever. I don't know, whatever. That's what we're looking at right now. Show third party. That's completely irrelevant. Right now, considering the bias and considering that Trump is leading in aggregate, it is looking like Trump is going to win. We've got this from 538, however. They say that out of 1,000 simulations, there are 4 ties. And Nebraska is trying to pass a law that would make it so that they don't split their electoral votes anymore. Winner take all. Should that happen, things get really interesting. If Nebraska goes winner take all, that's one big flip. You then start entertaining scenarios where Kamala Harris could actually end up, if she wins, take a look at this. If Trump takes Nevada and Arizona and Nebraska goes winner take all, he gets Georgia and North Carolina, and then Kamala gets the Rust Belt, it's a tie. And then you get President Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris. Sure. I mean, maybe, I guess. That seems absolutely wild. All right, so here's what we got from ABC News. As an aside to breaking news, Eric Adams charged with accepting improper campaign contributions. That's, I think, what we all expected. ABC News says this could be the closest presidential election since 1876. According to 538's latest election forecast, Vice President Kamala Harris has a 57 in 100 chance of winning the presidential election in November, while former President Trump has a 42 in 100 chance. This means the race is essentially a toss-up. They say blah, blah, blah. Let's talk about 1876. Why are you bringing that one up? They say, for example, if you assume the forecast will be exactly correct and assign all states and congressional districts to the candidate who currently leads in them, then you move Nevada just 0.8 percentage points towards Trump. Harris would win 270 electoral votes and Trump would win 268. That would be the smallest electoral vote margin in a presidential election since 1876, when Republican Rutherford B. Hayes beat Samuel J. Tilden by 1 vote. No, he didn't, and I'll elaborate. I mean, technically, he did. Now, imagine Nebraska goes winner take all, meaning it turns that one district red. You get a tie. How about that? If those past elections are any guide, that could be a recipe for chaos in the weeks after Election Day. They say in 1876, the election results was disputed until just days before Inauguration Day, as some states sent conflicting sets of returns to Congress. In 2000, there were protests. In 1876, there were threats of violence. Here in 2024, it's possible the losing candidate in such a tight race could contest the election in one or more states, which could in turn cause unrest among voters. Trump, for instance, has already called the veracity of mail-in ballots into question. The Republicans have begun suing state governments over registration processes that they allege will let non-citizens vote in the election. And Trump has previously declined to rule out political violence from his supporters if he doesn't believe the election is fair. That is insane, ABC News. You people are evil. Evil indeed. We got viral videos right now where they got this dude, he's going door to door and he's asking people, are you a citizen? They're like, no. He's like, are you registered to vote? Like, oh, yes, of course. He's like, who are you voting for? Oh, Kamala. And these are just, it's individual basis. And they make the argument every time they say, look, it's just one person, you have no standing. You have found evidence of non-citizens who intend to vote, who are registered to vote, but it wouldn't change the outcome, right? How do you adjudicate claims against 50,000 people in an election? Maybe it's designed that way on purpose. Let's talk, my friends, about what that means, that we could be looking at an 1876 election. Ah, yes, good old Wikipedia. The 1876 U.S. election was the 23rd quadrennial presidential election, held Tuesday, November 7th, 1876. Following President Grant's decision to retire after a second term, U.S. Rep. James G. Blaine emerged as a frontrunner for the Republican nomination. However, Blaine was unable to win a majority at the Republican National Convention, which settled on Governor Hayes of Ohio as a compromise candidate. The election was among the most contentious in American history and was only resolved with a compromise of 1877, where Hayes agreed to end Reconstruction in exchange for recognition of his presidency. Heavens me. A committee got together and decided who the president was going to be by negotiation. Now, ain't that something? Tilden won 184 electoral votes to Hayes' 165 in the first count, with the 20 votes for Florida, Louisiana, South Carolina, Oregon disputed. To address this constitutional crisis, Congress established the Electoral Commission, which awarded all 21 votes and thus the presidency to Hayes in a strict party line vote. Some Democratic reps filibustered the commission's decision, hoping to prevent Hayes' inauguration, but their filibuster was ultimately ended by party leader Samuel J. Randall. In fact, my friends, there was deep fear that a second civil war or that the Civil War would re-erupt if they did not have this compromise. Now, maybe, but when you look at the state breakdown, it is largely Southern, but you did have a break. South Carolina, Florida, and Louisiana were going Republican. And New York and Connecticut, New Jersey actually went Democrat. So it wasn't the same dividing lines, but there was fear. And so it ultimately ended up happening. They said, we'll let you be president if you end Reconstruction, which returned a lot of autonomy to Southern states post-Civil War. They say the compromise of 1877 was also known as the Wormley Agreement, the bargain of 1877, or the corrupt bargain. Look at that. They call it the corrupt bargain. Was an unwritten political deal in the U.S. to settle the intense dispute over the 1876 election, ending the filibuster of the certified results and the threat of political violence in exchange for an end to federal reconstruction. No written evidence of such a deal exists, and its precise details are a matter of historical debate. But most historians agree that the federal government adopted a policy of leniency towards the South to ensure federal authority and Rutherford B. Hayes' election as president. The existence of an informal agreement to secure his authority, known as the Bargain of 1877, was long accepted as part of American history. Its supposed terms were reviewed by historian C. Van Woodward in the 1951 book, Reunion and Reaction, The Compromise of 1877 and the End of Reconstruction. Under the compromise, Democrats controlling the House of Representatives allowed the decision of the Electoral Commission to take effect, securing political legitimacy for Hayes' legal authority as president. The subsequent withdrawal of the last federal troops from the southern United States effectively ended the Reconstruction era and forfeited the Republican claims to the state governments in South Carolina, Florida, and Louisiana. The outgoing president, Republican Ulysses S. Grant, removed the soldiers from Florida. And as president, Hayes removed the remaining troops from South Carolina and Louisiana. As soon as the troops left, many white Republicans also left, and the Redeemer Democrats, who also dominated other state governments in the South, took control. Some black Republicans felt betrayed as they lost their political legitimacy in the South that had been defended by the federal military. And by 1905, most black people were effectively disenfranchised in every southern state. All this because they feared that we could devolve into another civil war. So how about that one, huh? When they go on to say this may be like 1876, they're trying not to say it. And they say, oh, Tim Civil War pool. Hey, man, take a look at ABC News and what they're saying. The signaling and the messaging is clear to all who have eyes to see. You take a look at how they're laying things out and what we can expect, and it's quite worrying. We do got an update on Eric Adams' indictment, campaign contribution scandal. We'll come back to that later. We'll finish out this segment. No, we don't want to read that. We're trying to read about this. CNBC says Kamala Harris likely to win election despite Trump being better on inflation and economy. CNBC CFO survey. I'd like to entertain these because I got to be honest, my friends. We look at the polling data and it ain't good for Kamala Harris. It's looking like Donald Trump is actually going to be the winner here, but we don't know for sure. And there's two minds about it, right? They come out in the press and when you ask people, Trump is the winner. Trump is winning the argument, but is Trump winning procedurally? The deep state may just play that game. They go in the corporate press and they say, everything's for Kamala. That way, when their shadow campaign puts Kamala in office, they'll say, look, we told you the polls favored her. That's why they were so shocked when Trump won. Hillary Clinton in every forecast model had a greater than 99% chance of winning. There's no way Donald Trump can win, they said. These people were so blind. These psychotic individuals. I'll tell you about this phenomenon. Jack Dorsey is a really great example of it. Jack, he's a guy who started Twitter. Remember Twitter? It's called X now. Jack Dorsey says, we're going to be the free speech wing of the free speech party. Good for you, dude. And for a long time, you could go on Twitter and say darn near anything. But then one day, he flips on a dime. Now he's like, you can't call, if a man wants to be a woman, if a man wants to be a woman, you have to say that man is a woman. Otherwise, you're bound. And that was the rule change. And it's kind of weird. It's like, hold on there, dude. Like, conservatives think misgendering is when there's a guy who wants to be called a gal. And if you call the guy a gal, you're misgendering the person, right? Because he's a guy. Democrats flip it. If a guy says, I want to be a gal, it's misgendering to not call him a gal. That's two worldviews, right? They're distinct. Here's what happened. Jack Dorsey created this machine. And then through a series of algorithmic decisions, less so because X wasn't very, I don't think they were heavily dependent on algorithms for the most part, but I do think that they still had search algorithms and things like this. But because of the way they moderated against things they deemed to be not advertiser friendly, they created a skew towards woke left ideology. That is to say, a man who once was relatively libertarian, a libertarian tech bro, not like Big L, but more libertarian leaning and believed in free speech, created a giant toilet that everyone could take a dump in, and then he took the piping from it and jammed down his own throat. He began gargling the refuse of the crackpot nonsense that he promoted on his own platform, and then it rotted his brain, and he believed it. Mark Zuckerberg's now coming out saying he's a libertarian. Okay, dude. Let's see you unban everybody, and then I'll believe you. Lies. But we'll get into that next. Jack Dorsey hooked the tubing into his own throat. Zuckerberg's always been kind of a douchebag. Hey, it is what it is. Jack Dorsey, maybe, but he started to believe this stuff. And I'm sitting there with him and Vijay Gadde on the Joe Rogan podcast. And I'm like, misgendering is a great example. And he's like, what? I'm like, your rules are biased. Your rules favor a leftist worldview. Do you not understand? Do you not have Google? Have you not ever talked to anybody else? No. He was pumping it straight. He's an IV right from a toilet, right into his veins. And it was just sitting there, and he had human waste in his brain. He couldn't think properly. He could not fathom that other people in this country saw things differently. And that's what we're seeing right now with the corporate press. I'm hoping this is the case as it pertains to polling for Kamala Harris, why they overestimated Hillary Clinton's chance of winning, because the media sit around in a big circle staring at each other like a circle of jerks patting each other on the back. We keep it family friendly here. And then they all believe each other. Do you guys remember the stories, the scandals about the journalists? So we all know what a journalist is, right? But there was a journo-list. I'm well aware of this scandal because I was on some of them. That's right. It was a big scandal where people found out that journalists and writers from a bunch of different companies were part of online forums where they all talked about the same things. And people started to say, hey, how come every single news outlet wrote the exact same story in the exact same way? Now, some people said it's a government conspiracy. The CIA is coming. And well, maybe. But the reality was most of the journalists are in New York. They all go out for drinks together. They all know each other. It's an incestuous relationship. You work at one company, you go work at another company. I remember sitting down in New York at a bar in an outdoor seating area in the back with like 10 journalists, all from different companies, all hanging out. I was working for Vice at the time. And they were working for, Gawker Network brands and whatever, and all these different outlets, and they all talked about the same thing. there were a variety of lists that journalists would be a part of. And so what happens is when it comes to 2016, these lists still very much exist. And to this day, they still do, of course. And all of the journalists are writing, look, Hillary's winning. Another journalist sees Hillary's winning, so he writes Hillary's winning. The only thing they can see is this insular bubble where they can't actually see what other people think. That has never changed. Hence, the bias in 2016 and 2020 against Donald Trump. If you go to a liberal newsroom and you ask, did Donald Trump call neo-Nazis fine people? They all say yes. I guarantee it. The average newsroom, they're going to say, yes, he did. And the best part is, if you say, no, he said they should be condemned totally, they'll give you some convoluted reason why actually he did. Because they can't see outside bubble world. And I'm hoping for it. And I hope you are too. Because that would mean that Donald Trump is leading and that we may actually get some, results. I wonder what a Donald Trump presidency would look like if he is unshackled. He made a lot of mistakes in his first term. There's probably, my personal preference would have been a Dave Smith presidency. I wonder what that must be like to be Dave Smith, knowing that you've got a bunch of people being like, Dave should have been president. I disagree with Dave on certain things, but I trust him as a real human being to actually manage things properly, as the American people would probably prefer it. However, Donald Trump is the best president of my lifetime. No new wars, withdrawing from these foreign conflicts, negotiating peace agreements. I have tremendous respect, and I am grateful that we had that opportunity. I wonder what a Trump presidency would look like were he to be unshackled. Would be amazing, I think. But who knows? Who knows? Perhaps I'm wrong, my friends, but it's looking pretty good for Donald Trump. Luzerne County flipping is a big deal. This is Pennsylvania. This is the Keystone State. The state that must be won to win. If Kamala Harris does not win in Pennsylvania, they say that her chance of winning the election drops to 4%. So we'll see. I don't think it's funny that they're looking at the polls. They're saying, look, Kamala Harris is ahead. And it's like, you guys do know that your polls have been wrong for the past two major presidential elections, right? Secret Trump voters or media manipulation, you decide. I'll wrap it up there. Next segment is coming up at 4 p.m. on this channel. My friends, smash that button, that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with each and every one of your friends. Tell them Timcast is the best show. Everyone agrees. At least that's what I've been told. And head over to timcast.com, click join us. Also, in light of what I've been talking about with these cities, we have a song coming out, Coming Home. If you go to Timcast Music if you search for Timcast Music on YouTube, you can see the promo for it, Coming Home featuring Phil Labonte. GetComingHome.com, but you need iTunes installed to pre-order it. And that will officially launch tonight at midnight. I believe tonight at midnight we're dropping the song. I don't know if it's the smartest time to do it, but that's when we're doing it. And so all y'all can buy the song at Get Coming Home. And they play dirty games with us to try and make sure that we can't hit those charts. So you've got to buy it on iTunes. I'm sure Apple loves the fact that iTunes still sells music. But I'll say one more thing, too, with this. If these mainstream artists, Taylor Swift, if they could sell music, they would. They struggle to do so. So let's send a message. All right, everybody. Next segment will be coming up at 4. For everybody else, we'll go to Super Chats. Thanks for hanging out.